guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing a review slash recap on Lovecraft Country, episode 4, of which is titled A History of Violence. Now before we get into the nitty gritty of this crazy episode, it was great by the way, also crazy, I do have an exciting announcement to make. I will be featured in my first ever live show, of which I was invited by The Silver Site. If you guys are not following The Silver Site, make sure you subscribe to his channel, tell him I sent you, hit his notification bell so you don't miss this live, of which is happening this Friday at 8 p.m. It's going to be me alongside with Hero Harrison. So you definitely don't want to miss this. We'll be having a live show discussion about the first 3 episodes of The Boys. Tune in on Friday. And if you guys would like to support me any further, I also have my Lunar Goddess Boutique shop. It's an online shop for women. I will link that down below in the description box. Okay, so it's very interesting that they named this episode A History of Violence, because along with the history of violence comes a history of pain. And we see that with Montrose and his pain and how he's sort of dealing with that, with the PTSD that comes about, dealing with the death of his brother, drinking, crying, and reminiscing about the conversations that he had with his brother before he died, about Atticus. And we get a little bit into his history with the whole Tulsa massacre, of which Montrose, his wife, and Uncle George ended up escaping back in 1921. So we know that Uncle George gave Montrose this book, of which Montrose ends up burning, and he makes this comment that it smells like Tulsa, and that's what he's referring to as the Tulsa massacres that they luckily survived. Now in this book, we see a small little passage about the creation of the monsters and how they blame Eve and continue to worship Adam, and this is the cult that I'm referring to. Cut to the next scene, and we see that Christina shows up at Letty's doorstep to collect her money, because we all know that she ended up paying for the house. Christina is driving this really nice like silver Bentley, and in the background they're playing the Rihanna song, Be Better Have My Money. I thought it was very fitting. Christina is at Letty's doorstep, thinking she's just about to walk into Letty's house, or the doorway said no, and she can't due to the protection that the goat lady had put over the house. So Letty 1 and Christina 0. Christina warns Letty about assuming that men are going to be doing things in order to protect the ones that they love, because she also reminds Letty that she already died once for Atticus. And I think that kind of gets Letty thinking a little bit, but I definitely don't believe that Christina had Letty's interests at heart when she said that. I think that she was just doing it to kind of mess with Letty in a way, because she's always going to cater to her own agenda. But I think that Letty also realizes that she has a point, and this comes a little bit later in the episode. She also tells Letty about what happened in the last episode with Atticus visiting her and pulling a gun on her while they were at the realtor's office. She believes Atticus to be kind of like this crazy basket case that's going to end up getting Letty hurt again. And she also mentions that she is at Letty's house simply because she is interested in Hiram's orrery. And I believe that's what it's called, an orrery, which is the motto of the solar system. But I think it might be a time traveling machine. That's just the theory that I have. We cut to the next scene with Hippolyta discussing the orrery with her father on the phone. That's the orrery that she ended up stealing from Letty's house. I don't know how we're just gonna gloss over the fact that Hippolyta literally committed a crime. She stole. But I'm pretty sure Letty didn't even know that the orrery was even at her house. But the orrery is broken, so she can't really do anything with it yet, I'm sure. We then cut to a scene with an enraged Letty after she had that whole little conversation with Christina, and Christina revealed some things that, you know, to Letty's surprise. So she heads to this library where Atticus is, and she confronts Atticus about the conversation that she had with Christina. Then Atticus goes on to tell Letty that she can't be killed. And he reveals that Christina used Atticus simply to kill her own father. Letty then figures out that Atticus wants to get rid of Christina and then leave and head back off to Florida. And she felt some type of way about that, because it's like, well, what about us? Like, I thought we had something. And during this scene, there is this cute little boy, because mind you, they're at a library and they're being kind of loud, and well, at least Letty is. And he keeps shushing them because he wants to read his little book. And that book happens to be Journey to the Center of the Earth, which basically sets up the episode. It sets up what's going to happen within episode 4, and I thought that was very clever. Now, they don't initially know where the vault is, so Letty suggests to Atticus that he ask his father. Atticus is like, no. Letty and Atticus end up meeting with Montrose, but Montrose tries to downplay their plan to gaining access to this vault and discourages them from looking any further into solving this mystery. He later lets it slip that there are 34 lodges, and Montrose just refuses to give them answers to what they need. So, but Letty ended up convincing him, and he reveals that the vault is in fact in Boston. We then see Christina playing hide and seek with all these little kids in the middle of the street, which was kind of weird. I don't really know the relevance of that particular scene. If any of you guys know, please comment down below, because I was a little bit lost on that scene. But we then see a police officer who ends up picking her up and bringing her to the station. Captain Lanchester asked her, like, hey, what are you doing in my city unannounced? And she simply told him that, hey, I'm here for the Ori. We hear a man wailing in the background, and Christina walks towards this door with a window and ends up like peeking through the blinds just to look at the man. Now, we, the audience, didn't see this man. I do have a few theories. I don't know if it would be right. I kind of feel like, in a way, it could be the real Montrose. And what I mean by that is that I don't even know if Montrose is Montrose. What if Uncle George was actually alive? I don't know. Maybe that's just my mind going crazy. Tell me your guys' theories down below. So Christina further antagonizes Captain Lanchester, who quickly reminds her of her place in the order, that this is not a place for women and that it's a man's game. We then see that Atticus, Letty, and Montrose are packing up to head to Boston, and the little banter and the little actions that are happening between Letty and Atticus are just hilarious. There's such children in this scene. But also Hippolyta and her daughter Diana end up joining them, and as Montrose had asked Hippolyta to use their car to head to Boston, so they're pretty convinced that this is just a family vacation. Tree later ends up joining them because he just wanted to avoid having to pay the bus fare to get to Philly. Trifling. Can I say that I love the use of modern music in this show? I have no problem with them using more modernized, like hip-hop, R&B for a period piece like this, because I mean it makes for a nice transition. I like the choice of music because they have lyrics in it of which kind of sets the tone for what's happening within the scene. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I do. Next, we see Letty's sister Ruby at the Marshall Field and Company store, and we all know that she's been applying there for years. It's just a dream of hers to have, be able to work there. And she spots a black woman who is an employee there, so she's wondering like, I've been applying all these years, and how are you here? So the employee approaches Ruby, asking her if she needs help with anything. Ruby's like, oh, no. But then Ruby ends up asking her, like, did you just start working here? Because Ruby knows that they don't normally hire black women. And I also have a theory too about this. I think that woman who worked at the store, that was Christina. I believe that Christina is a shapeshifter. I think that Christina is trying to use Ruby and get close to her any way that she can in order to use her as leverage to get into Letty's house. So Atticus, Letty, and Montrose and all of them get to this museum in Boston. Montrose expresses that he knows the security guard that's able to hook them up, get them on the path towards their journey through this cave. Now, before we get heavy into this particular mission, I have to say, once again, I love the music choice for the scenes of when they arrive to the museum and you see Hippolyta explaining to her daughter Diana how she named a comet, but the credit didn't go to her. It went to a white woman of whom was the niece of an astronomer, because they didn't want to give her, as a black woman or a little black girl back then, the credit that was owed to her for naming that comet. And Diana was like, not today. And she announced to everybody in that exhibit that her mother named that comet. I know that's right. But back to the music, I felt like it was very adventurous and it made you feel like you were watching a film. Once again, I've always said that, and it's just nice to see black actors be adventurous and go on quests. Like, it portrays us in a way that we've never really seen ourselves in, as far as movies and in film. So more sci-fi and more horror genres for us, please. Now back to Atticus and the crew. As they're walking around the museum, Tree reveals to Atticus, out of frustration of dealing with Letty's mouth, that Montrose is gay, because him and Sammy were getting close. And we all know that, we saw Sammy in the first episode when Atticus had initially gotten to Chicago looking for his father. Tree had directed him towards the alleyway, of which he found Sammy with another man. So he told him that Sammy and Montrose were very close while Atticus was gone. Of which I kind of had a feeling that Montrose actually was gay. It makes sense knowing his history of what happened to him as a child, getting beaten for being too artistic. You have to think in terms of what that actually meant back in the 50s, how it wasn't as accepted to do certain quote-unquote feminine activities as a little boy. So his father viewed him this way and beat him, and then he in return grew up beating Atticus. Atticus, Letty, and Montrose end up on their journey to finding this vault, and as they're attempting to find the vault, They end up going through all of these crazy booby traps, which you could expect. It's a journey, it's a quest. Meanwhile, we cut to a scene with Letty's sister Ruby singing at a bar and not really having the time of her life. That's when she is introduced to William, aka Christina. I don't care what any of you guys say. William is Christina. Christina is William. She is a shapeshifter. Ruby gets the impression that William is hitting on her or coming on to her. She refuses him at first, but then she ends up giving in and has a moment with him on the stairs. Back to Atticus, Letty, and Montrose. So while they're on their journey to the center of the earth, mission, I guess you can call it, Montrose reveals that he burned the book of bylaws that Uncle George had given to him. And of course, Atticus is furious. Like, why would you do that? Montrose lies and claims that that was his brother's dying wish, which we all know it wasn't. Montrose is definitely hiding something, and like Letty said before, that he's just allowing Atticus to chase his own tail. While Atticus and Montrose are fighting, Letty discovers the dead body of her neighbors that had gone missing in episode 3, which gives us another clue that this whole cave is connected to her house. That's where the bodies were found in episode 3. Well, they weren't found, but that's where when we saw the elevator go down below basement levels and we saw those bodies there. So they probably actually could have saved themselves a trip and just had taken the elevator in her house all the way down below basement level. They end up finding this hermaphrodite, of which I believe was of native heritage. Her name is Yahima, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Shout out to the actress who played Yahima, by the way. We have an industry connection, and I'll just leave it at that. So Atticus is the only one that can communicate with her. He understands everything that she's saying. Montrose doesn't understand. Letty doesn't know. So they take her back with them out of the cave as the waters are getting more dangerous. It's rushing towards them, so they have to get out of there. They head to the elevator. They grab the scroll of which was in front of her when she was a skeleton before she came back to life, I guess you can say. And they end up heading home. But before then, while Atticus and Letty were on the elevator, they end up kissing because you wanna. Meanwhile, you have Diana and Hippolyta, who they seem to have forgotten about. They're driving home alone. Hippolyta is clearly PO'd, and so Diana has in her hand Uncle George's atlas, and Hippolyta goes over to take a look at that atlas and discovers that within that atlas, Devon County has a huge circle around it. So Hippolyta quickly turns the car around in order to get some answers. Where are you going, really? By yourself with your daughter at night in 1950s Jim Crow America. So Atticus and Montrose are back at the house with Yahima. Surprisingly, Montrose expresses how proud he is of Atticus. Atticus ends up going to bed, and Montrose walks into the room where Yahima is staying, puts his hand on her shoulder, and says, "I'm sorry," and then... So I gotta say, Lovecraft Country continues to get better and better. I love the story, the mystery behind it all. I love that they make their audience work in order to get the answers. I love doing... A lot of it requires further research into history as well, and I actually like that. What did you think of episode 4 of Lovecraft Country? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please hit the like button for this video. That definitely helps. And again, be sure to tune in for a live collaboration between the Silver Site and Hero Harrison and I. Will be discussing the first 3 episodes of The Boys, and you don't want to miss it. So make sure you subscribe to the Silver Site as well as Hero Harrison. He should have his page up pretty soon. And yeah, hit the notification bell for my video and as well as the Silver Site. And I will definitely let you guys know when Hero Harrison will have his page up as well. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next review for Lovecraft Country.